Good evening and welcome to the Newshour Agenda. I'm Madhavdas GK. Now, the Delhi LG has given prosecution sanction against author Arundhati Roy and a former professor in Kashmir, Sheikh Showkat Hussain. They will be prosecuted under the UAPA for the alleged provocative speech that they delivered at an event in 2010 under the banner of Azaadi, the only way. It was at this event where Arundhati Roy had called for Kashmir's Azaadi. She said that India needs Azaadi from Kashmir and Kashmir needs Azaadi from India. She further called Kashmir the most militarized zone in the world and termed India as a hollow superpower. Listen in.
India needs Azaadi from Kashmir just as much as Kashmir needs Azaadi from India. It is the most militarized zone in the world. For me, it's an intolerable situation. It's a historic meeting taking place in the capital of this very hollow superpower. India needs Azaadi from Kashmir just as much as Kashmir needs Azaadi from India.
And Kashmiri rights activist Sushil Pandit had filed a complaint against the duo over their speeches. In his complaint, Sushil Pandit had alleged that the topic and the issue discussed and propagated during the convention was separation of Kashmir from India, and provocative speeches were made in the seminar, which was also attended by Kashmiri separatist leader Syed Ali Shah Gilani and Delhi University lecturer Syed Abdul Rahman Gilani. The BJP has welcomed the Delhi LG's decision, saying that those who seek to break India and spew venom against the nation should be punished.
Many thanks to LG Sahab for allowing to prosecute Arundhati Roy and all those separatist leaders, the so-called Naxal element in this country, who said that Kashmir is a separate part. It's not a part of the India. The very thought of breaking India is always persistent with them. And these people must be tried. And they should be booked. And the law should take its own course on them. They are harmful to the health of the country.
The Lieutenant Governor of Delhi, who has taken a bold step by booking the two hate mongers, Arundhati Roy and Dr. Showkat. I believe the step should have been taken long back. And Arundhati Roy, everybody is aware that she is hiding right now in the foreign and speaking venom against the country. I'm glad that both of them will be held, they will be caught, and they will be punished as per the law.
Some of the opposition have hailed Arundhati Roy. PDP chief Mehbooba Mufti's daughter Iltija Mufti said that one of the best minds, Arundhati Roy, will be prosecuted under UAPA for being an audacious voice who refuses to bend. Congress, on the other hand, questioned why the decision is being made 14 years after the controversial remark by Arundhati Roy.
14 साल पुराने फाइल को एलजी साहब अभी तक कर क्या रहे थे पिछले 14 सालों से? क्या है ये सब? एलजी साहब, आपको बताना पड़ेगा कि 2010 के केस में आप 14 साल बाद निर्णय क्यों ले रहे हैं? अगर ये देश की सुरक्षा से संबंधित निर्णय है तो ये तुरंत क्यों नहीं लिया गया? और अगर ये हैरेसमेंट करने के लिए निर्णय है तो निश्चित तौर पर इसका खामियाजा कौन भुगतेगा?
जिस तरीके से अरुंधति राय पर यूएपीए के तहत मुकदमा दर्ज करने की बात सामने आ रही है, ये बहुत ही शर्मनाक है। और दिल्ली के एलजी कितना त्वरित उन्होंने कार्रवाई करने के आदेश दिए हैं। और आप ये देखें कि क्या ये भड़काऊ भाषण एक पढ़ी लिखी बड़ी राइटर उनका सम्मान न करते हुए बल्कि उनके ऊपर एक मुकदमा इतना गंभीर दर्ज करने की बात है।
There's a tweet coming in from Mahua Moitra of the TMC. She says that if by granting sanction to prosecute Arundhati Roy and the UAPA, BJP is trying to prove they're back, well, they're not, and they'll never be back the same way they were. Quickly getting a word from Sabyasachi. Sabyasachi, Mahua Moitra making a huge political statement there that BJP is trying to reiterate that it's back by taking action against Arundhati Roy.
Well, absolutely. The Trinamool Congress MP Mahua Moitra has said that by prosecuting Arundhati Roy, BJP thinks that they are back in the same way that they were back in 2014 or 2019. But this time around, it is clearly not. See, Trinamool Congress time and again has been hinting that the BJP has not got full majority this time and they have to rely on their ally partner. And the Trinamool Congress also has been saying that this particular government won't last for 6 months, and during the 6 months of time, anything can happen. The ally can even shift to the other side. So this is what the Trinamool Congress MP has been hinting, that the BJP does not have full majority this time around.
Thanks so much for the quick update there, Sabyasachi. Let's quickly take us across to our guest now.
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Joining us on the show, we have Lalita Bardar, activist, Wales State columnist, Karuna Nandi, advocate of Supreme Court, Kamruzaman Chaudhary, political analyst, Faisal Kashani is a political analyst as well, Professor Monijit Mandal is a political analyst joining us. But I first and foremost want to go across to national spokesperson of BJP, RP Singh. You heard Mahua Moitra there. She's saying that you've tried to prove that you are back in power, but that's not going to happen. That's the statement coming in from the TMC MP. Your response, RP Singh?
Well, national security can't be above anything else. And then for them, national security is the last. For us, it's the first thing. And then people want to break the country. They have supported that. Even Mr. Rahul Gandhi has been to ANU in support of such elements who were saying, Bastar ko kya chahiye azadi, Kashmir ko kya chahiye azadi. So this complete gang of Azadi gang, or this Azadi gang has to be nailed in, and the message has to be clear that no one can even think of breaking country, and especially Jammu Kashmir, which is integral part of India. And you just now showed the video where she's categorically and clearly stating that Kashmir needs Azadi, and then we need Azadi from Kashmir also. So this is how the mindset of this Azadi gang is, the so-called ultra-left or so-called the Naxal, urban Naxal is.
Okay, so Professor Monijit Mandal, I want Professor Monijit Mandal to respond to that. The mindset is clear. The statement was also very clear that they want to divide India, says the BJP, and therefore action is being taken. There's nothing political about the timing. Please respond, Professor Mandal.
First of all, we certainly do not endorse such comments, even though it was spoken in a conference within the four walls of maybe an institute. But those comments were certainly not endorsed by any sensible political party. But my question is, what was BJP and this particular LG doing in the last 10 years? And the second question, what is the reason that it is warranted now at this point in time to prosecute this person under this kind of stringent law when her statements did not lead to any kind of secession of Kashmir or did not lead to any kind of terrorist attack? Rather, Pulwama happened under their nose, where so many of our Jawans, 42 of our Jawans, were killed. Where is the justice for these people, and how many people have been prosecuted because of that particular attack by the terrorists? Where actually terrorist attacked and many of our Jawans were killed. How many people are being prosecuted when some people are still marauding in Chhattisgarh and in parts of Madhya Pradesh under the name of Naxalites?
Okay,
Naxalites
you made a point. Let me bring in some of the other panelists on this. Suhail Seth, I want you to come in on this. What was the LG doing for the past 14 years, or the office of the LG, if this was pending for the last 10 or 14 years, as the case may be? Isn't the timing questionable in this case?
Excuse me, and the deed are ridiculous. Both. You know, we have a knack of suspecting anyone with a brain who has an opinion. You classify them as anti-national, or that they're urban Naxal. What the hell does urban Naxal mean? I was born and raised in Calcutta. Do people even know how and why the Naxalite movement began? So, Madhav, my point is, this government has got off to a start. And now, internationally, they will be shamed. Arundhati Roy, you may disagree with her. You may disagree with an opinion of hers. You can't put her in jail under UAPA. B, what does it say about us as a democracy? That we can't have any opinion? People have abused India before from various political parties. People have their views on Kashmir. People have their views on Manipur. Are you going to lock everyone up? Number three, it's about the optics. The LG has now taken action under one of the Karunas on the show, so she'll give you the legal action against under the most stringent legal situation. Why would you need this? I've just not understood when everything is about to start afresh in terms of the term. why would you need this narrative to again tarnish the government? People will again say, and rightly so, that democracy is under threat because it's a 2010 comment. Has Kashmir been given away to Pakistan? No. Has Pakistan taken over Kashmir? No. You want to lock people up? I mean, we cannot be a pernicious society and then talk about being Vishwaguru. See, let's approach it logically. I know the BJP people and some others may not like the point, but this is not how you're going to progress. I mean, today, if I say something that I don't like Times Now, tomorrow will the LG arrest me because he thinks that being against Times Now is being anti-national? It's ridiculous.
Let's go point by point. The point is she's also made a very controversial statement, but let me put a simple question across to Lalit Ambardar. Lalit Ambardar, in this particular case, there is a comment that she has made. There's no doubt that it's a controversial comment. It's very distasteful, and many do not agree with that comment. But even so, does that justify the invoking of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, which is used against terrorists? Lalit Ambardar.
Listen, I'm so sorry that panelists here are only trivializing the issue. You have to understand what India is on hand in Kashmir. Is Kashmir Jihad? Is Pan-Islamism inspired? And what are they seeking? They're seeking separation of Kashmir from India in the name of Islam. Just because they are Muslim majority Kashmir, they don't want to be part of India. And how they started it off. They, at the advent of Kashmir Jihad in 1989-90, genocide was unleashed on the aborigine Kashmiri Hindus. 42 years have passed by. Not a single rapist, mass murder has even been charged now. Do all these panelists mean to say that so much of time has passed by, now we should not even touch them? Is this what they want to see? And I was present on this particular day when this anti-India seminar, so-called seminar, was held in LG Theatre in the heart of the capital of India, in the hub of Creative Cultural Activity Center, the LG Theatre, and we were protesting outside. And it's not only what she spoke, the audience inside the auditorium, they were hailing her, applauding her. And who had present the dice? The patriarch of Kashmir Jihad, Ali Shah Gilani. I'm so sad that he died a natural death. He should have been under UAPA, this law, and should be hanged to death. But she should be allowed to go scot-free just because the time is that. And at that time, this Delhi auditorium, every auditorium Delhi, the only narrative that was being talked about in Delhi itself was how much. It wasn't about whether India should give away Kashmir. No, it was taken for granted. It was only about how much India could be going to bend on Kashmir. That's what it was. And let me remind all of them, these so-called political opponents of BJP, out of these 14 years, 4 years were under UPA. In fact, this was right under the nose of UPA, Congress-led UPA, that this seminar was held in the heart of the city. So I don't think that you should be trying to reflect. In Bangladesh, 90-year-old jihadists were involved in the genocide in East Pakistan are being tried now, hanged now. And if left to the Indian so-called these apologists, secular, liberal, Democrat, then Bangladesh, those perpetrators of crimes against humanity committed against East Bengal, in East Bengali Pakistanis that time, should be let go free. I don't think time should be a factor. And let me tell you, if you don't set a deterrent, Kashmir Jihad like situations are erupting in the rest of India. You have West Bengal. You have a candidate. You have a leader.
Let me come in on this. And I want to bring in Faisal Kashani.
Three Pakistans here.
Yeah, let me bring in Faisal Kashani on this. Faisal Kashani, when it comes to even the freedom of speech, there are reasonable restrictions to it, as you would very well know. And one of the clauses is those aspects which are in the interest of sovereignty and integrity of India. And if somebody says that, one particular part of India needs Azadi, isn't that a directly in conflict with what the Article 19(2) of our Constitution says? Faisal.
So I am very, surprised and amazed by the insecurity of BJP. Even after abrogating Article 370, 35A, dividing the Jammu and Kashmir into two halves, they still fear about these things. That, somebody has said something 12 years back, or this might divide India, or this might... law will take its own course since now it will be sub judice. But there are major issues in Kashmir right now.
How will it take its course if there is no prosecution sanction?
In last Sorry?
How will law take its course if there is no prosecution sanction?
Now
the law should take its course and you're objecting the prosecution sanction.
No, the thing now the LG has sanctioned the prosecution, right? So now let the law take its course. We have seen such allegations at the time when it was there were allegations against Kanhaiya Kumar and they couldn't prove anything. We have seen this before. And person who has filed this complaint, he is always looking for the reasons to be in the news. So it's nothing new. I'm not like surprised by this move. The only question is there are a lot of burning issues in Kashmir right now, which needs more attention than these cases of Arundhati Roy and other people.
All right, let me bring in Karuna Nandi, who is an advocate. Karuna Nandi, is there a comparison to be drawn between Kanhaiya's case and this particular case? Because in Kanhaiya's case, if I remember correctly, the point of contention was whether those statements were made in the first place or not. In this particular case, it's well documented, well reported. There's a case that's been filed. There's videos of the controversial comments that Arundhati Roy has made. How do you look at this from a legal perspective?
Well, from a legal perspective, I think we have to see the sections that were brought against Ms. Roy. The case from 2010 invoked section 124A, which is on sedition, 153A, 153B, which is on religious hate speech, 153B and 505 IPC. Now, 124A is the sedition. And as most lawyers, the case of the Supreme Court, Justice Ramanna essentially, the bench, I beg your pardon, led by Justice Ramanna, said that stayed any prosecutions under that case. If you look at the other three sections, they are punishable up to 3 years. So cognizance is barred after 3 years of the incidents under 468 of the CRPC. So what is the situation here then? It appears that after 14 years, the UAPA provision is brought to prevent the government from having egg on its face. Right?
Okay.
So to that extent, it appears to be significantly arbitrary. And that further, any law has to be interpreted by the prosecution and the government in accordance with the various judgments on it, right?
Okay.
As somebody said, is Arundhati Roy a terrorist? No, of course she's not a terrorist, right? And if we look at the Shreya Singhal judgment, and I'm so sorry about my connection, it appears to be...
Yeah. If I can just give you a minute to fix that connection, and I'm just going to request my team to get into that. We'll quickly try and rectify that connection, and meanwhile, I'll get a response from RP Singh on this. RP Singh, the question being raised here by Karuna Nandi is whether this is being done with a view to sort of undo the damage or the impact on the case as far as sedition is concerned, given the position that has been taken by the Supreme Court against sedition. Is this an attempt to circumvent that, is the question that she is raising. How do you respond to that?
Well, Madhav, that's a legal game. I mean, she can play whatever legal way out, and if she's so supportive of Arundhati Roy, she can support her in the court also. But the fact is, remember Yasin Malik, 25th January 1990, he killed Air Force personnel in Kashmir. And then it took us almost 29 years to arrest him and prosecute him. And the case is still on. So, law takes its own course. But saying that it was just a statement. No, it was not just a statement. It was supporting a cause. It was not just one of the statements made by someone in some public appearance. No, it was supporting a rebellion cause in Kashmir. It was supporting those stone pelters in Kashmir. It was supporting people who used to take guns and then kill people at large in Kashmir. It was supporting all those who shoot away or who ensured that Kashmiri Pandits should leave Kashmir. It was supporting that cause.
Okay.
So it's not just one of the statements. I mean, it's very easy to say that, anyone can make, it's freedom of speech. No, it's not freedom of speech. No, not at all. It is against the nation. It's against the community. It is against the Pandits as community. And man who was saying, that Sushil Pandit is the actress. Oh, yes, sir. It was his community who suffered.
No, RP Singh, if we take everything that you're saying is correct, What is the reason for the sanction being given 14 years later? Why has it not happened earlier? One second, sir, please, Mr. Kashani. I want RP Singh to respond to the timing question.
Madhav, 1990, I said, Yasin Malik killed Air Force personnel. And he was arrested in February 2019. How many years? 29 years.
Yeah.
And the case went on, and then he was probably given punishment in May 2022.
Okay. Let me bring in Kamruzaman Chaudhary. Kamruzaman Chaudhary, there are a number of opposition leaders who are questioning why this is happening now. It's in the BJP regime. It's a message that's being sent out by the BJP, etc., so on and so forth. But there are those who will also say that this case was registered when the UPA was very much in power in 2010. And if you wanted to take action at that point of time, legal action could have been taken in this case. Kamruzaman Chaudhary.
Yeah, Madhav, since I'm speaking last, I request you 1 minute of your time. I'll just explain. My fellow panelists have already told about the point about the 14 years too soon the case has been sanctioned for prosecution. That apart, you know, the FIR was registered as per the Metropolitan Magistrate Court order, under which 2 more accused have already died under the custody. Now you bring this case against Arundhati Roy. I am putting up a different angle to this entire thing. You know, claiming to be the leader of the global south, our prime minister is in Italy meeting the world top leaders out here. And at that time, the world left intellectual leaders who already had warned against any action against Arundhati Roy. The pressure tactics is a diplomatic move to sanction and prosecute Arundhati Roy at the time when Modi is attending the G7 summit. India is hailed as the world's largest democracy. India now risks becoming the world's largest autocracy with consequences for the whole world. Now, why I say this, I'll cite you a small example. Prabir Purkasth and Amit Chakravarti of the News Click were arrested.
So one arrest cannot take us into the level of autocracy. I think that's also taking things a bit too far. Certainly there are actions that are questionable and there are different points of view. But let me quickly bring in Sushil Pandit, who actually filed this case in the first place. Sushil Pandit, there are many who are questioning why has it taken 14 years for this case to be finally, receive prosecution sanction. Is the timing political? Is the question that is being made.
Madhav, I can't speculate on this issue. The question should be answered by those who sat on these files and decided to pull them out now for action. In fact, there should be an inquiry on this also, and heads should roll as to why this was held back for so long. They should also face consequences for impeding the, as they say, the course of the law that it should have taken in the last 14 years. Now, be that as it may, 14 years ago, when this travesty took place, when openly in the heart of our capital, a call for destruction of Indian Union as a colonial state, as an occupying state, as a state that had subjugated people in Tamil Nadu, in Punjab, in Northeast, in Kashmir, had no business to survive. When such statements were made, when call to arms rang out from the podium, repeatedly by Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani, by Varavara Rao, by Arundhati Roy, when these things happened, the then Home Minister was trailed by the reporters, the journalists, as to what action he proposed to take. After 1 week of dodging them and ducking, he finally said, taking no action is also an action. It is then that I thought, as a private citizen, I should move the court, I should move the police and seek some action against this. Now, if from the very top you have this mindset, none other than Chidambaram, the Home Minister, says so publicly, pompously, then there is something absolutely rotten in the state of Denmark.
Right. Mr. Pandit, I must also ask you.
Because when the government changed, for 10 years we had a different government, a different prime minister, a different home minister, a different party altogether. A party of muscular patriotism. What did they do on this case? Except sitting on it and not doing anything. I had given up all hope. I hope now the path of law will not be impeded and it will be allowed to take its course, as they generally are fond of saying. Yes, you were asking something, Madhav.
Yes. There are several questions that arise from this. Of course, even freedom of speech has its own reasonable restrictions that we were discussing. But there are those who are questioning whether this is a reaction to what the Supreme Court has said vis-a-vis sedition and, the restrictions as far as sedition case that have come in from the Supreme Court. Is this an alternative legal path to go ahead and prosecute Arundhati Roy that is being looked at? Is a question that some of our legal panelists have observed. How would you respond to this?
See, though it is the insistence of a lot of people that sedition as a law is outdated and colonial, none other than Supreme Court itself had defined the basis on which sedition could be invoked. And it was Supreme Court in independent India. And this case meets all those conditions because call to violence was unambiguously made. And dismemberment of the country was called for. Also, it led to breach of peace. Police had to take up protesters, detain them in the police station in order to avoid breach of peace. So every condition that is prerequisite for invoking the law of sedition existed. Now, if Supreme Court decides to amend its own view few years later, it is their prerogative. But laws are something that our parliament makes, our elected representatives make, and Supreme Court is only there to interpret them, not to make their own laws. I think it is the duty of elected representatives to uphold the integrity of the country, no matter who violates it. No matter who violates, it is equal for everyone. And therefore, they must face the consequences of their action, even if 14 years later.
Absolutely. And one of our panelists, Mr. Pandit, I believe we have Karuna Nandi with us. She wants to pose a question to you. With your permission, I'm going to allow her to ask you a question. Karuna Nandi.
Thank you. I'd like to say something very briefly on what the law is. Now, regardless of what the law used to be, today the law on sedition has been stayed, pursuant to a constitutional challenge to the entire law. So your impression, sir, on what the law is what the law was, right? Because prosecutions have been stayed. Now, with regard to your other sections, and perhaps your lawyers have not informed you of this, with regard to the other sections, Section 468 of the CRPC provides some limitation because those are all provisions that on prosecutions under 3 years. So one appreciates the fact that yours is not a currying favor, politically motivated prosecution. But the thing to understand is that under the law, your entire prosecution and all those provisions would either have been stayed or would have lapsed.
Okay.
But for this UAPA.
Okay.
You must ask yourself that tomorrow if somebody says something about, say, for example, there was a panelist here who was saying that so-and-so should have died in prison, right? Do you want a society where there is discussion, where even under the Supreme Court judgments of Shreya Singhal, etc., that there is even advocacy?
I'm just going to come in now, Karuna Nandi, because we have very limited time. I'm going to allow Sushil Pandit to quickly respond to you and the concerns that you have raised. Sushil Pandit, your response to Karuna Nandi.
I think a lot has been allowed to pass under freedom of expression. Even Supreme Court says that this fundamental right is not an absolute right and it is subject to certain restrictions. In your point of view, calling for dismemberment of the country, calling for violence to achieve this objective is within the ambit of freedom of expression and should not be restricted to reasonable restrictions. Then I am afraid. I hear you,
Mr. Modi. But if you look at the video clip that was played, she did not call for violence, right? She used the term Azadi. Now, if we look at what the Supreme Court has said precisely, and I have that judgment in front of me, it says that...
If you don't please talk about one clip. I sat there and I heard her for 45 minutes.
But
please
Mr.
listen
Modi,
to the entire speech.
Mr. Modi, what she's being prosecuted for today is using that word Azadi. And let's look at this. That advocacy is different and incitement is different. Incitement to violence is different. Mere discussion or even advocacy of a particular cause is at the heart of Article 1918. What I'm saying to you today, right, is that if people asked for, said something, if a Kashmiri Pandit, for example, said something against another community, said something like X should go to Pakistan. Now, this is horrible. And this is something that is not acceptable, according to me, according to the values of our society.
Okay.
Wrong analogies.
One by one. Karuna, you made a point. Karuna, you made a point. Let Mr. Pandit, Sushil Pandit is his name, by the way. Let Mr. Pandit respond. Yeah, Sushil Pandit.
No, but if he's being called Sushil Pandit, I should be referred to as Karuna Nandi.
Karuna Nandi. Okay, Karuna Nandi. Yes. I'm sorry. Karuna Nandi, please allow Mr. Sushil Pandit to make his point. Yes.
Please make your point.
Miss Nandi, what you are arguing for is not permissible as far as I am concerned. As far as my right to live in a safe country, it is such calls that led to the genocide of an entire community from Kashmir. 500,000 of us have not been able to live in our homes. None of our murders, massacres, rapes, and abductions have been prosecuted. Those
and
who
there I am with
advocating.
You. On that I am with you.
You cannot be partially with me and partially with those who are responsible for my genocide. You cannot run with the hare and hunt with the hound. You have to take a position. And this cannot be, I'm on one hand this and on one hand that. Please look at things in totality. This is the consequence of playing footsie with those who advocate insurgency, jihad, and stand by them for their violence, which they unleashed on us, on unarmed, hapless people just because they professed a different faith. This cannot pass. It is the largest, biggest genocide in independent India in the last 75 years. What has been done with this? You being a lawyer, I'm sure you are conscious of this, you are aware of it. Did you move a petition? The same Supreme Court threw our petition out thrice, asking for justice for the victims of this genocide. Where were you? Where were lawyers like you who are today perturbed at application of a law for finding hair-splitting issues and interpreting law in this manner or that manner? Where were you when hundreds of thousands were evicted from their homes? Thousands faced massacre, death, rape, and abduction, and their killers still roam free. Where is justice for that? Where is the justice? It is 35 years. Which Supreme Court judge stood up for this? Which judge resigned? Which judge wrote to the president writing letters like they did when their collegium was upturned and some certain judge was not appointed?
Okay.
They come to the streets addressing press conferences because a registrar did not put one case to this judge or to the other judge. Here a whole-scale travesty of justice took place, and there's crying shame that not one victim has been delivered justice. People are dying waiting for justice, and we are quibbling over whether this section is applicable or that. It is utter shame. It's crying shame. In this country...
Okay, you made your point. Mr. Pandit, you made your point. Ms. Pandit, you made your point. Karuna Nandi, please respond.
I think he's making a very important point. If I may address this very briefly. Mr. Pandit, when the Kashmiri genocide was happening, and it was a genocide, I was a child. I do not go hunting for clients. If there are clients that come to me, then, and my pro bono quota is overflowing, whatever I can do, I represent them. I am with you. I am with the victims of the Kashmiri genocide. There is no two ways about that. Let me be clear. Number two, the fact that you are saying that I must agree with you on all issues, otherwise in your court I am evicted, is, I think, exactly the kind of thinking that we cannot no longer countenance. We must understand that there is a variety of thinking. It's the kind of thinking that leads to genocide. Today, there are people asking for a genocide in Kashmir on live television, online, and with complete impunity, they are asking for a second genocide in Kashmir. And that is not being prosecuted, sir. And that is something that you must look at.
No, absolutely not.
The first thing
Absolutely not.
The law.
No, nobody's asking for any genocide. Please, let's.
Madhav, equating a genocide which was committed.
No.
And might, sir, is what leads to things like
a genocide which was committed and is awaiting justice for the last 3 decades with a genocide which is feared, which is speculated.
I did not
which is
interrupt you.
speculated.
Okay. Let her complete her point. And I will give you a chance to rebut that as well, Mr. Pandit. Yes, Karunanandi.
So the point is, I think that we must understand that today, the speech that is being prosecuted is exactly the kind of speech that you will be prosecuted for tomorrow should the government change, right? Do you want to live in a society like that? Or do you want to live in a society that doesn't freeze, a government that has frozen the compensation rate for Kashmiri Pandits at 13,000 rupees, and that rate has not increased in the last 10 years? There has been no justice for Kashmiri Pandits.
Yeah, but
no
Karuna, may I ask you a
safety,
question? Karuna Nandi, may I ask you a question?
Kashmir.
May I ask you a simple question?
Is that not something that you want to ask for today instead of prosecuting people like Arundhati Roy?
No, Karuna Nandi, I have a simple question. Do you believe that this is a violation of the reasonable restrictions that are covered when it comes to freedom of speech?
The reasonable restrictions, that's a good question, Madhav. The reasonable restrictions come into the design of the law, right? But if you look at this particular case and the law that is there in this case, the case actually no longer exists but for this UAPA provision that has suddenly been brought in 14 years later. And at a time that the court is on vacation and most lawyers, and I mean, I'm in Delhi in the heat with all of you, but most lawyers are on vacation, right? So the timing of this is very suspect. The fact that the UAPA has been brought in is a real problem. But otherwise, the case actually no longer exists. But I want to speak to Mr. Pandit actually about what I think are very legitimate feelings on his part with regard to the lack of justice for Kashmiri Pandits. Because I think that is a very important issue, and I also think it's a separate issue. But I also think that this is an issue that has not been addressed by this government. And given that this government is aligned values-wise with the cause of the Kashmiri Pandits, let at the very least justice be provided there.
Okay. I think you're both at least on the same page on that. But Sushil Pandit, would you like to respond? We're almost out of time, but your response to Karuna Nandi.
Thank you, Madhav. No, first of all, I am very touched by Ms. Nandi's offer of taking up the case. I am reminded of Justice P.N. Bhagwati, who was the father of public interest litigation institutions in our courts. And he said, even a postcard can be a petition for the court. And then he went further. He says, forget a postcard. Courts should take a suo motu view whenever they come across any such violation that needs the intervention of courts. Lawyers, especially public-spirited lawyers, are known to have moved the courts for environment, for different violations, without anyone coming forward. If you are moved enough, and if the law has conscience, if the institutions are sensitive, you don't wait for someone to come to your door begging for justice. That's number one.
That's not
Number
true.
two, please, I did not interrupt you. I did not interrupt you.
Okay.
When you said don't interrupt, I kept quiet.
Okay. Make your point, please.
Yes. Now, quibbling issues about whether this applies or not, whether it has been done 14 years later, and that this government should do something because it is aligned to our cause, is actually giving a free pass to all earlier governments.
That's fair.
Why? Why should we be so lenient to them? I demand prosecution of those who turned a blind eye, who refused to listen to us. We went to International Court we went to UNHRC. We went to NHRC. In NHRC, Justice Venkatachalaya wrote a speaking order saying ours is a case akin to genocide. How many heads rolled? Who was made accountable? Where are the... Genocide is not a small crime. It's not a law and order situation. It's a heinous situation. We are signatory to the Convention on Genocide by United Nations in 1948. What have we done? Does our constitution have prevention and punishment of genocide for which our parliament is obligated? Has any lawyer raised this issue? We are missing in fulfilling our obligations as a state signatory to this convention.
All right, I have to come in now because
justice.
we have to wrap up this discussion. We're completely out of time. I'd like to thank both of you, Sushil Pandit and Karunanandi, for coming in on this, because there are some very interesting perspectives that both of you have shared, and certainly, of course, that adds to this entire debate. Thank you both, Sushil Pandit and Karunanandi, for joining us, as well as our other panelists earlier, RP Singh, Lalit Ambardar, Suhail Seth, Kamruzaman Chaudhary, Faisal Kashani and Monaji.